SaGa Frontier released in the US on March 31st, 1998, nearly 5 years since the last game in the franchise made it stateside. It was also the first to be released in the US under the SaGa name. As I mentioned in my Romancing Saga 3 review, the first 3 games in the SaGa series were released under the name Final Fantasy Legend in the West. When Square announced that they were remastering SaGa Frontier for the Switch, PS4, PC, and mobile, I was excited. But as much as I always remembered the game fondly, I feel like I never really appreciated the aspects that separate SaGa Frontier from many of the other JRPGs at the time. We'll talk more about that in a bit, but for now, let's talk about the remaster itself. If you're someone who enjoyed SaGa Frontier and want to know if the remaster is worth picking up, the answer is absolutely yes. I can only speak to the Switch version, but the performance was good. Unlike the original, I never ran into spells or abilities that caused the game to slow down. I also never had any noticeable frame drops or crashes either. The new character sprites are excellent. I can't tell you how many times I came across a character and immediately thought, so that's what they look like. They still retain the look and feel of the original, just clearer and in more detail. The pre-drawn backgrounds have also been given a facelift, and markers showing the exits for each screen have been added to make navigating them less awful. You'll still have doors you can't enter even though they look exactly like other doors you can enter, but at least now you'll know about it in advance. There's also new content. Admittedly, I haven't finished Fuse's scenario, which is an entirely new adventure added for the remaster, as truly finishing it would require me to beat every other character's scenario, and this review would be coming out in December. Based on my limited time with it though, I can easily recommend checking it out. A few bits that were originally cut from Acelus' story have also been restored. While it was nice to have more content, it ultimately changes very little. That said, it was neat to see her escape from Fasanaturu the way it was originally intended. One of my personal favorite changes was the expanded info screen when changing equipment. Instead of just having a raw defense stat and maybe a line of text explaining that the item also gives you an unknown degree of fire resistance, you can actually see all that information right here. No more equipping your armor with the best defense rating only to take more damage because the game doesn't tell you that it lowers your resistance to nearly everything. Looking at no game in particular, Romancing Saga 3. Another welcome feature is the New Game Plus option. This allows you to carry over a lot from your previous playthroughs like stats, money, and skills. This significantly cuts down on the need to power up the same characters over and over throughout the different main stories. For those who want a challenge, you can even carry over your battle rank from previous playthroughs, making even the enemies you face early on much stronger. The best part is that all of this is optional. If you want to start the next story fresh, you can, or you can pick which specific things you want to carry over. That's all I have to say about the remaster. As I said in the beginning, if you just wanted to know if it's a good remaster, it is. Anything negative I could say would just be minor nitpicks, like some ability names being changed to things that come off a bit flat. Other than that, it is a near flawless remaster that is very faithful to its source material. Now let's take a look at the game itself. One of SaGa Frontier's standout features is presented right from the title screen, the character select. Unlike many other RPGs at the time, your choice in character isn't just about stats or a few lines of text. Your choice in character determines the story you'll experience. You can recruit many of the other main characters during each scenario, but unlike a game like Octopath Traveler, you won't be participating in much of their story. Sure, you can add Amelia to your party when playing as Acelus, but you won't be avenging Amelia's fiancé. That's that's Amelia's story. There can be some issues with this though. Because all the scenarios each have their own structure, your initial experience with the game can be very different depending on which character you pick. For example, Lute's scenario is made up almost entirely of side quests. If you want almost completely open exploration, this is the way to go. Then there's Amelia's scenario, in which you almost never have to wonder what to do, as the next plot point is usually presented to you. You can go and do as much of the side quests as you want, but it's never mandatory. This can be a good thing as it allows you to tailor your experience to your preferred playstyle, whether it's open exploration, a linear story, or something in between. The downside is that this information isn't really presented to you before you select your character, so it's possible to get a false feeling that the entire game is either rigidly linear or completely aimless. Overall, I like the variety. It allows me to decide what I'm in the mood for, but I can see where it might be a source of initial frustration for new players. The combat is your standard turn-based affair. Pick your actions at the start of each round and watch them play out. Depending on what actions you select and the turn order, your characters may perform combo attacks together. This greatly increases the amount of damage you inflict compared to each character attacking individually, and the more characters that join in, the greater the bonus. Enemies can also perform combination attacks. These attacks can be devastating, so you'll want to take down as many enemies as you can as fast as possible. This is supported by the fact that after every battle, you recover all of your HP. The challenge comes from managing your WP, which allows you to perform physical abilities, and JP, which allows you to cast magic. Returning from previous SaGa games are life points. If a character loses all their HP in battle, they lose a life point. If that character is attacked before you're able to heal them, they'll lose additional life points. Run out of life points and a character can no longer participate in battle. Thankfully, life points can be restored by resting at inns along with your WP and JP. Leveling in SaGa Frontier works differently from many other JRPGs. Instead of gaining experience points and leveling up after earning enough, each character gains stats like strength and intelligence after each battle, based on the actions they performed. Some characters are more suited towards certain weapons and will have certain stats increase faster, but with enough perseverance and patience, you can make most characters good at whatever you want. Amelia may start off using guns and have low strength, but there's nothing stopping you from increasing her strength and having her punch dudes in the face. I love this type of customization that lets me decide what I want them to focus on. While there are a few quirks, like not providing information on how strong the various abilities are, or needing to do seemingly benign things in a very specific order to progress, overall, the gameplay in SaGa Frontier is very good. The combat is deep enough to be interesting, but not so complex that it feels overwhelming. It's a good thing because the stories, or more specifically, the storytelling, can feel underwhelming at times. The overall plots are mostly great, and I particularly enjoyed Acelus's story. It was hard to shake the feeling that some of the side content was incomplete. I was frequently trying to figure out if I was missing something or if I had just reached the edge of the world. Also, many of the realms just felt empty with very few NPCs or things to do. After reading interviews with the development team, it sounds like a decent amount of content had to be cut due to constraints. I would imagine this is why some areas seem empty and some side stories feel incomplete. As I mentioned though, the overall plots for each of the characters are interesting. Where a game like Octopath Traveler wears its tropes on its sleeve, SaGa Frontier puts enough of a unique twist on each story to make it more engaging. The music is excellent. On top of having several standout battle tracks, nearly every piece of music feels like it was crafted specifically for the situation or area it's used in. Quite often, I could walk into an area and instantly gain a feel for what was in store just based on the music. Overall, SaGa Frontier Remastered is a game I can easily recommend to JRPG enthusiasts. While it can be obtuse mechanically at times, the gameplay holds up well and offers up a good amount of customization and experimentation. The storytelling comes off a bit weak in some parts, largely due to areas and events feeling incomplete or unrefined, but the overall plots are engaging enough to serve as a vehicle for the gameplay. The 8 different storylines, along with the side quests, provide a ton of content, and the different combinations for building your team, as well as different endings for some of the characters, gives you plenty of replayability if you choose. So there are my thoughts on SaGa Frontier. Let me know in the comments if you plan on picking this up, or if you've already grabbed it, how are you liking it so far? If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like or subscribing. If you want to see some other things I've done, here's my review of Romancing Saga 3, as well as a retrospective on Dragon Quest 1. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.